We welcome in Steve Kerr. Steve, welcome. How are you?
Good. How you doing, Mike?
Good, thank you. All right, let me start with the locals, then we'll kind of branch our way out here. I just had Kid on. Obviously, a lot of attention and a very complete team with Brooklyn. What are your expectations for the Nets?
I've got really high hopes for the Nets. I had a chance to do a preseason game a couple weeks ago in Brooklyn, and just looking at their roster, I mean, they've got everything covered. And I think what they needed most after last year was what KG and Pierce can bring, which is kind of an edge and some leadership and some toughness. And that team a year ago didn't have a personality. But I think this, with the new additions, they have the potential to be really, really good and tough and defensive-minded. And I think the Nets could be big time this year.
I agree. Plus, all five guys can score. I mean, and all five guys could take the last shot. It's a heck of a team when you look at it from that standpoint. Plus, nobody has to really change how they play to be good. I mean, that's a nice fit. It really is.
It's a great fit. Garnett offensively is a ball mover. He'll knock down the shot, but he keeps the ball moving from the top of the key side to side. So he's really good for the rhythm of the offense. And then, you just look at, if they play Miami, for example, you got three different guys to throw at LeBron with Joe Johnson, Pierce, and Kirilenko. You've got Garnett to get under Bosch's skin, which he's done in the past. And then you've got Brook Lopez to dominate the paint and force Miami to play big. So you throw that next to Darren Williams, who can dominate his position in that matchup as well. And they could give Miami nightmares. I
totally agree. Plus, they first want to give the Knicks nightmares, which we'll get to in a second. One more on the Nets, and this is the one worry I have. Williams, since he's been here, has been very moody. His attitude's been of question, his moodiness. Some games he shoots, some games he doesn't. I could see him ticking off Pierce and Garnett if he's in that kind of moody mode. Do you think that's an issue?
I think it's an issue that KG is going to resolve quickly. There are a lot of stories about KG when he arrived in Boston. Pierce didn't have the greatest reputation back then. He coasted through practices. He was a little bit of a diva. And KG was the guy who got in his face and kind of turned him around and turned his career around. And KG's history is that if anybody, and it doesn't even matter if it's an all-star like Darren Williams, he will not tolerate any kind of moodiness or anything other than a total commitment to winning. And I think that's where maybe the most value from KG is going to be from that regard, just getting everybody full bore and straight ahead without dealing with all the usual crap.
Good answer, and that's important because I think that he needs that. I think that's a big positive if he makes that work. All right, Knicks, puzzling talent, but a weird mix, weird lineups, weird fits, injuries to deal with. What's your thoughts as you sort the Knicks out?
Well, they're clearly below the top four in the East, and that's a problem because I think the Knicks are a playoff team, and they're going to be interesting to watch. But I just don't see them getting past the first round of the playoffs. And they had a great year last season, and made a pretty good push, and the best season they've had in a decade or more. But I just don't see it progressing from there, given what the top four teams in the East look like.
If I put your GM hat on, what's the Knicks' best lineup?
Well, it has to include Chandler. What I'm really interested in is, can the Knicks play Bargnani at 4 and Carmelo at 3?
That's the question, and I don't know if they can. Just like I couldn't play Stoudemire at 4 and Carmelo at 3. I don't know if they can. They'll be really bad defensively.
Well, the one thing that gives me hope is that Bargnani can really stretch the floor, whereas Amari kind of got in the way of Carmelo. So there's hope that you can still space the floor with those two guys playing together, and if you have Chandler on the floor with them, he's the defender who can kind of restore order. To me, that's kind of the key to the next season. Can they get those three guys on the front line to play productively together?
You think Artest will be good or bad?
I think he'll be more good than bad. He's still a good player in the NBA. He can still guard, not like he could, 8 years ago, but he's still a tough player who can help you win games. I do worry a little bit about offensively. He's a ball stopper. And the key last year was that, you had Carmelo who was going to stop the ball and hold it, but you had him surrounded by ball movers and shooters, which kept the offense going. Now, if you have Carmelo and Artest out there together, the ball can really stop. And if the ball stops in New York, you're going to have a lot of problems.
Interesting. We're talking with Steve Kerr, TNT, as we get ready to open the season. Big doubleheader tonight. Knicks and Bulls Thursday. Bulls and Heat tonight. Let me stop at the Heat for a second, Steve, and just ask this, because this is, I think, the only question. Do Wade and Bosh continue to slip? We know LeBron's played on another level than anybody in the world the last 2 years. He's been utterly unbelievable. But do Wade and Bosh continue to slip, or do they kind of maybe pick it up from where they were last year?
I would expect them to tread water from where they were a year ago. They both had really good preseasons. Bosh came in very aggressive, looking to score, which I liked. Wade came in really good shape. But Wade, you're talking about arthritis. You're not talking about, he was overweight and he needed to lose some pounds. I mean, this is an arthritic knee that you're dealing with, and those just don't get better. And I think he still can be a superstar.
He can still have his game. There's no question. He can still have a game where he can raise it to the top level. No question.
But just not every night. And
right.
So I think a lot of it for Miami is going to be what their health looks like, in May and June, and is he playing at the top of his game? Last year he wasn't, and they were very vulnerable, and they were really, frankly, lucky to win that San Antonio series.
They were.
Indiana took them to 7, so they're vulnerable, but they're still the best team in the league.